Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the agenda or the platform of Mrs. Betty Nixon, who is running for the mayor of Nashville, Tennessee, Davidson County. And let me welcome you to the show this morning, Mrs. Nixon, and to talk about some of the things that you believe to be important in terms of the development of Nashville over the next several years. Why don't you start us off this morning by giving us some information relative to how you became involved in politics and perhaps some information in reference to the service that you have rendered to this community up to this point.
Well, thank you, Dr. Haney. I'm delighted to be here. And I'm delighted to be here with you. You were in my district when I was on the Metropolitan Council, and a good and responsible constituent, and I appreciate that. I would like to maybe talk about why I got involved in politics. In the first place, it truly isn't what I expected when I was growing up in Nashville. But I got mad at the government. And that was my primary motivation for running for the council. The area that we live in, over around Music Row and Vanderbilt University, was sort of scheduled to go out of existence, if you will, or there was real doubts about whether or not we could have a residential community inside of I-440. And I lived there with my family and decided that, in fact, we could do that. And so I ran for the Metropolitan Council. All the money was on the other side. I'm used to those kind of odds. And I won by 10 votes in a runoff. The election before had been won by 12 votes in a runoff, and the legislative race by 7 votes. So I think it's fair to say that our community was split down the middle about our future. But what I did was to ask the citizens of that community to come together, to organize, to set some goals for themselves. We did that. We brought our community back. We worked on our school and made it one of the best in the city. We worked on the neighborhood, and we chased out the people who had illegal uses for houses, and so pretty soon, you know, we really had a community blossoming and full of life. And I believe that one of the things that Nashville needs at this time is a commitment to work together to achieve a common agenda for this city. And so I feel prepared. I spent 12 years in the Metropolitan Council, as you know. After that first win by 10 votes, nobody ever ran against me again, in spite of the fact that that's a district that's characterized by close races. And so I feel that that demonstrates my ability to represent fairly people of differing views. I also was able to then address some citywide issues during my council service, and I think that those may give the viewers some insight into how Betty Nixon's mind works. And so let me mention a couple of examples. At one point, we were looking around for a way to help communities improve the quality of life, you know, really looking at neighborhoods and trying to do that in a cost-effective manner, which is one of the things, you know, there's never enough money for all the things we want to do. So we were trying to look for something that would really work and wouldn't be too expensive. So we looked at our schools and saw that we had a $100 million investment in school facilities, but that they were only used 20% of the time because they were locked in the morning until the children got there, and then locked in the afternoon, and locked on the weekends, and locked in the summertime. So I served as chairman of a task force and then sponsored legislation which unlocked the doors to those schools. In the morning for child care before the school day started, in the afternoon for after-school care until the parents got off for work, in the afternoons for recreational time, for Girl Scout meetings, for community activities, in the evenings for tutoring programs, for literacy, for people learning how to read, for people getting their GED, for classes and everything you can think of, for Tennessee6 to come and give classes at McGavock and other comprehensive high schools. And the other night, as a matter of fact, I was over at McGavock, and the parking lot was filled up with cars. And they were planning for their GED graduation. Their oldest student was 84 and who'd gotten her high school diploma, and the youngest was 17. So the schools became a place where communities and neighborhoods could come together.
Community education.
Right, community education. That's what the program is called. And then just one other example, and we'll get on with the future. But when I became chairman of Budget and Finance in 1983, the city's water sewer expansion had been bogged down in the Metropolitan Council for 5 years. I was able to take over that bill and work out some of the real problems involved, and within about a few months, that bill was passed. We had a new $500 million refinance and building out of that project, which enables Nashville to grow. And those sewer lines and water lines are still being built today. So I believe that I understand how to be effective and how to get things done in a sensible way. So that is an intro to the kind of political person I am. I was also trained in history and in political science as well. But if we looked into the future, I'd like to talk about this question of integrity.
Integrity in government.
Can we approach
Yeah,
that?
let's talk about that, because I think that that's one of the things that you've highlighted in terms of your campaign, not only dealing with integrity in government, but ways that might be improved through the institution of an independent audit. Why don't you tie those two ideas together and talk about that for a while?
Well, I'd like to do that, and that's really how we started off the campaign. Because as I go around Nashville, I am really disheartened by the amount of doubt that is out there, that government can, in fact, be a public trust, that we can spend your money and my money, the taxpayers' money, wisely, that we can make decisions based on merit and reason as opposed to just political deals. And I believe that in order to move forward, we have got to address that issue squarely and forthrightly and with some practical means. It's very timely that we should be talking about this question right now, because the petitions are just being filed with the clerk to put the issue of the independent audit on the ballot for the August election, when the mayor and council will also be elected. And so I'd like to sort of explain to you and to the viewers what it means, because it sounds awfully technical.
It really does.
You know,
but
independent internal audit, and, you know, don't we audit what's going on here? Well, the internal audit is the audit that is supposed to tell us whether or not the government metro is spending the money the way the council has appropriated it in the budget, and also if it's spending it efficiently, whether or not it's, you know, it's getting the job done in an efficient way. Well, currently that internal auditor reports to the finance director, who is the political appointee of the mayor. So so when I give speeches, I kind of play a game with this one. I'm going to ask you to participate with me. And in order to do that, I'm going to ask you to be my public works director. Would you like to be public works director for just a little while? In order to make this work, you really also have to be my buddy, because this system doesn't work unless you're my buddy.
It's a buddy system.
Right. So you be my buddy too.
Very good.
So just for make believe, okay. And so what happens is that if I want something done in the Department of Public Works that may not really be exactly the way it's supposed to be done. It may not be something that's in the budget that way. It may not be something that should be done in the way that we're doing it. Then I ask you, because you're my buddy, would you handle that for me? We'd like to, you know, maybe hire these people that aren't quite the people we're supposed to be hiring. You'll handle that for
I'll
me.
handle that for you.
Okay.
That can be very good.
So since I direct through my finance director where the internal auditor is to go, then I can direct that person away from you.
Very good.
And if they do happen to go over and find that, then they report back to
you,
to me. And there is no provision under the current law for that information to go to the Metropolitan Council, which is to have oversight over the executive and how they spend the money.
So the independent audit will simply